The pregnancy test slipped from Katherine's trembling fingers and clattered against the marble bathroom counter, the single line mocking her for the 7th time in 4 months. She pressed her palms flat against the cool stone, breathing through the familiar ache that had become her constant companion, and wondered how much longer she could keep pretending this wasn't tearing her apart from the inside out. The penthouse apartment stretched silent around her, 50 floors above Manhattan, all glass and steel and accomplishment. Everything in her life looked perfect from the outside. She had married Gabriel Daniels 18 months ago, in a wedding that made the society pages, becoming the wife of one of the youngest billionaires in commercial real estate development. He had built an empire by 32, transforming abandoned industrial complexes into thriving mixed-use communities across America. She had been a project manager at an environmental consulting firm when they met, working on the sustainability assessment for one of his developments in Brooklyn. He had walked into the presentation meeting, tall and commanding with dark hair and eyes that seemed to see right through corporate presentations into something real, and asked questions that proved he actually cared about more than just profit margins. They had fallen hard and fast, stolen coffee meetings turning into long dinners, his confidence and drive matching her own ambition and passion for creating meaningful change. Gabriel made her laugh with dry observations about the absurdity of high society, while simultaneously making her feel like the most important person in any room. He proposed 6 months after their first date, on the rooftop of a building he was renovating, surrounded by reclaimed materials and possibility. Now she stood in their bathroom, feeling like she was failing at the one thing that should come naturally. They had been trying for a baby since their first anniversary, both of them ready to expand their family. It had seemed simple at first, something that would just happen. But month after month, her body refused to cooperate. Each negative test felt like another rejection, another inadequacy she couldn't fix through hard work or determination. Katherine splashed cold water on her face and straightened her shoulders. Gabriel would be home soon, and she had promised herself she would tell him about this one. She had hidden the last 2 negative tests, not wanting to see the disappointment in his eyes, but that felt dishonest in a way that made her uncomfortable. They had built their relationship on transparency and trust. The elevator chimed in the foyer, and she heard his footsteps, confident and familiar. She walked out of the bedroom to find him loosening his tie, his suit jacket already draped over his arm. He smiled when he saw her, the kind of smile that still made her heart skip even after all this time. "Hey, beautiful," he said, closing the distance between them to kiss her forehead. "How was your day?" "Negative again," she said quietly, watching his expression carefully. Gabriel's face shifted, not with disappointment but with concern. He set down his jacket and pulled her into his arms, one hand cradling the back of her head. "How are you feeling?" "Like my body is broken," she admitted into his shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with the slight staleness of a long day in meetings. "You're not broken," he said firmly, pulling back to look at her face. "Katherine, listen to me. You are not broken. These things take time sometimes. It's been 4 months of really trying, 7 negative tests." Her voice cracked despite her best efforts to stay composed. "What if something is wrong with me?" Gabriel guided her to the couch, sitting close with his arm around her shoulders. The city sparkled below them through the floor-to-ceiling windows, millions of lights against the darkening sky. "Then we figure it out together. Do you want to see a doctor?" "Get some tests done," she nodded, relieved that he was taking this seriously and not just brushing off her concerns with empty reassurances. "I think I need to know. I need to understand what's happening." "Okay, we'll make an appointment." The best fertility specialist in New York, whatever it takes. He squeezed her shoulder gently. But Katherine, I need you to know something. I married you because I love you, not because of what you can give me. A baby would be incredible, but you are what matters most to me. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them, and Gabriel held her while she cried, his hand rubbing slow circles on her back. She had been holding this fear so tightly inside, terrified that failing to give him children would make her inadequate as a wife, as a woman. Hearing him say those words loosened something hard and painful in her chest. I love you too, she whispered. I just want this so much. I want to have your baby. I want to see what we could create together. We will. However it happens, we will. He kissed the top of her head. I promise you, Katherine, we're going to figure this out. 3 weeks later, they sat in Dr. Sarah Mitchell's office at the Columbia Fertility Center, surrounded by diplomas and soft lighting designed to make difficult conversations feel less clinical. Dr. Mitchell was in her 50s with kind eyes and a straightforward manner that Katherine appreciated. She had reviewed their medical histories and the preliminary test results with thorough attention. The good news is that there's nothing obviously wrong, Doctor. Mitchell said, folding her hands on her desk. Katherine, your hormone levels are normal, your ovarian reserve looks good. Gabriel, your sperm count and motility are excellent. Sometimes fertility is just a matter of timing and persistence. So we just keep trying. Katherine asked, hearing the frustration in her own voice. That's certainly an option. Given that you've only been actively trying for 4 months, most doctors would recommend continuing naturally for at least another 8 months before considering interventions. However, Doctor. Mitchell paused, looking between them. If you want to be more strategic about it, we can start tracking your ovulation more precisely. Use ovulation predictor kits, monitor your cycle closely, time intercourse for your most fertile window. Gabriel reached over and took Katherine's hand. What would you recommend? I'd recommend trying the monitoring approach for 3 to 6 months. If you're still not pregnant after that, we can discuss more involved options like intrauterine insemination or IVF. But I genuinely believe you have a good chance of conceiving naturally with better timing. Katherine felt a mixture of relief and continued anxiety. Nothing was wrong, which was good, but that also meant there was no clear problem to fix. Okay, we'll try the monitoring. Good, Doctor. Mitchell smiled warmly. And try to reduce your stress levels as much as possible. I know that's easier said than done, but stress can impact fertility. Make sure you're taking care of yourselves, not just focusing on the end goal. They left the appointment with a bag full of ovulation kits and information pamphlets. In the car, Gabriel turned to her before starting the engine. You heard what she said. Nothing is wrong. This is going to happen. I know. I just wish I could fast forward through this part. Katherine stared out at the city traffic, people rushing past on their own journeys. Hey. Gabriel waited until she looked at him. We're in this together, okay? Every step. You're not alone in this. She nodded, grateful for his steadiness even as her own emotions felt like a storm. Thank you for coming with me today. I know you had that meeting with the Chicago investors. They can wait. You're more important than any deal. He started the car, merging into traffic with the easy confidence he brought to everything. Besides, Marcus handled it. That's what I pay him for. Marcus Chen was Gabriel's right-hand man, the chief operating officer who kept the business running smoothly while Gabriel focused on the big-picture strategy. Katherine had met him numerous times at company events, a sharp and efficient man who clearly respected Gabriel's vision. Over the next 3 months, Katherine's life became governed by ovulation kits and cycle tracking apps. She peed on sticks every morning, analyzed the results, and planned their intimate life around hormone surges and fertile windows. What had once been spontaneous and passionate became scheduled and purposeful. Gabriel never complained, never made her feel like this was a chore, but she could sense the shift in their dynamic. Sex was becoming about conception rather than connection. On a Friday evening in October, Katherine sat at their dining table with her laptop open, staring at the negative result from that morning's pregnancy test. They had timed everything perfectly this cycle. She had been so sure this would be the month. Her period was due tomorrow and the test was already negative. Another failure. Gabriel came home to find her crying at the table, and he immediately crossed the room to kneel beside her chair. "Katherine, sweetheart, what happened?" "Nothing happened. That's the problem." She gestured angrily at the test stick lying on the table. "We did everything right this time. We timed it perfectly, and still nothing." He pulled her down to the floor with him, gathering her into his lap despite the awkwardness of their positions. I know this is hard. I feel like such a failure," she sobbed into his chest. "Like my body won't do the one thing it's supposed to do." "Stop," Gabriel said, his voice firm but gentle. "Your body is not failing. You are not failing. This is just taking longer than we hoped, but that doesn't mean it won't happen." "What if it never happens? What if we can't have children together?" Gabriel was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "Then we'll figure out another path. Adoption, surrogacy, maybe we'll end up with a house full of rescue dogs and travel the world. I don't know what our future looks like, Katherine, but I know it's with you. That's the only part that matters to me." She pulled back to look at his face, seeing the sincerity and love in his dark eyes. "You really mean that? Every word?" He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away her tears. "I love you. Not future you with a baby, not hypothetical you who gets pregnant easily. I love you, exactly as you are right now." Something shifted in Katherine's chest, a tiny loosening of the tight grip of anxiety she had been carrying. "I love you too. I'm sorry I've been so obsessed with this. You don't have to apologize for wanting something. But I do think maybe we need to take a step back, stop making this the center of our entire lives." Gabriel helped her stand, pulling her toward the couch. "When was the last time we just spent a weekend doing something fun, not thinking about ovulation or timing or tests?" Katherine thought about it and realized she couldn't remember. Every weekend for months had been planned around her cycle. "I don't know." "Exactly. So here's what we're going to do. This weekend, we're leaving the city. No phones, no pregnancy tests, no schedule. Just us, reconnecting and remembering why we fell in love in the first place." "Gabriel, we can't just leave. You have work. I have that sustainability report due on Monday. Marcus can handle work, and you can finish the report when we get back or submit it a day late. The world won't end." He stood up, already moving toward the bedroom. "Pack a bag. Comfortable clothes, nothing fancy. We're leaving in an hour." Katherine watched him go, feeling simultaneously resistant and intrigued. When was the last time they had been spontaneous? When had she last let herself just enjoy being with her husband without the weight of reproductive pressure hanging over every interaction? She packed a bag. They drove north out of the city as the sun set, Gabriel refusing to tell her where they were going. Katherine watched the suburbs give way to countryside, autumn colors still clinging to the trees in the fading light. She felt the tension slowly draining from her shoulders with each mile that passed. 2 hours later, they pulled up to a small cabin on the edge of a lake in the Catskills. It was charming and rustic, with a stone fireplace and a dock stretching out over dark water that reflected the rising moon. "You rented a cabin?" Katherine asked as Gabriel grabbed their bags from the car. "I bought it last year, actually. Been using it as a retreat when I need to think about big projects. Never brought anyone here before." He unlocked the door and gestured for her to enter first. "Thought it was time to share it with you." The interior was cozy, with exposed beam ceilings and wide plank floors. Someone had been there recently because the place was clean and the refrigerator was stocked. Katherine raised an eyebrow at Gabriel. "I may have called ahead and had someone prepare it," he admitted with a slight smile. "I wanted this to be perfect." Katherine set down her bag and walked into his arms, resting her head against his chest and listening to the steady beat of his heart. "It is perfect. Thank you for doing this." They spent the evening cooking dinner together, something they rarely did anymore with their busy schedules. Gabriel turned out to be surprisingly competent with pasta, while Katherine made a salad and garlic bread. They ate at the small wooden table by the window, talking about everything except fertility and babies. He told her about the new development project in Austin, how he was trying to incorporate even more green space and community areas. She talked about her work on renewable energy assessments, the satisfaction of helping companies reduce their environmental impact. After dinner, they built a fire in the fireplace and curled up together on the worn leather couch. Katherine felt more relaxed than she had in months, Gabriel's fingers tracing lazy patterns on her arm. "I've missed this," she said softly. "Just being with you. I've missed it too." He kissed her temple. "We got so caught up in trying to make something happen that we forgot to just live." "I'm sorry I turned us into a science experiment." Gabriel shifted to look at her properly. "Hey, we both did that. I went along with every schedule and every plan." "I could have said something earlier, suggested we slow down. This isn't just on you." Katherine thought about Dr. Mitchell's advice about reducing stress, about the last few months of mounting pressure and disappointment. "Do you think maybe we've been trying too hard? Like, maybe the stress itself is part of the problem. I don't know. But I do know that I want my wife back, the woman who laughs at my terrible jokes and challenges me when I'm being stubborn and makes me want to be better than I am. I feel like I've been watching you disappear under this weight, and I hate it." His words hit her like a bucket of cold water, shocking and clarifying. She had been disappearing, becoming nothing more than a collection of symptoms and cycles and disappointments. "I want her back too." They made love that night without thinking about ovulation windows or optimal timing, just two people reconnecting in the most intimate way possible. Afterward, lying tangled together in the cabin's comfortable bed, Katherine felt lighter than she had in months. They spent the weekend hiking around the lake, sitting on the dock with their feet dangling in the cold water, playing cards by the fire. Gabriel taught her how to skip stones, laughing when hers sank immediately while his bounced across the surface. She introduced him to the mystery novels she had been reading, and they spent an entire afternoon sprawled on the couch reading in comfortable silence. On Sunday evening, as they packed up to head back to the city, Katherine realized she had not thought about pregnancy tests or cycles once all weekend. The absence of that constant anxiety felt like a revelation. "Can we come back here?" she asked as Gabriel locked up the cabin. "Regularly, I mean." "Maybe once a month or something." "Absolutely, anytime you want." He loaded their bags into the car and pulled her close, the cool evening air swirling around them. "Thank you for this weekend." "I should be thanking you. You're the one who planned it." "No, I mean thank you for remembering us. For being present. I've really missed you, Katherine." She kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude into it. "I'm here, I promise. No more disappearing." They drove back to Manhattan with the windows cracked, cool autumn air streaming through the car, hands linked across the console. Katherine felt like something had fundamentally shifted between them, a return to their foundation rather than the shaky structure they had been building on top of obsessive baby-making. The next month passed differently. Katherine still tracked her cycle, but with less intensity, less desperation. She and Gabriel made love when they wanted to, not just when the app told her she was fertile. She threw herself back into her work with renewed energy, taking on a major project assessing the environmental impact of offshore wind farms. Gabriel brought her to several site visits for his new Austin development, interested in her professional opinion on his sustainability plans. They spent Thanksgiving with her parents in Boston, her mother immediately asking when they were planning to have children. Katherine felt Gabriel's hand tighten on hers under the table. "We're working on it, Mom," she said lightly, changing the subject to her sister's new job before her mother could probe further. Later that night, in the guest room of her childhood home, Gabriel held her in the narrow bed. "Your mom means well, I know. Everyone means well, but it doesn't make it easier." Katherine stared at the glow in the dark stars still stuck to her ceiling from childhood. "Sometimes I feel like my entire worth is being measured by my uterus. Not to me. Never to me." She turned in his arms, studying his face in the dim light. "What if we stopped trying for a while? Like, really stopped? Put away the ovulation kits, delete the apps, just live our lives and see what happens?" Gabriel considered this carefully. "Is that what you want?" "I think so. I feel like I've been holding my breath for 6 months, waiting for something to happen, and I'm exhausted. Maybe if we just let go, stop forcing it so hard, things will unfold naturally. Then that's what we'll do." He kissed her softly. "Whatever you need, I'm with you." December arrived with the first real cold snap of winter, the city transforming into a wonderland of holiday lights and bustling shopping districts. Katherine threw herself into preparations for their first real Christmas as a couple in their home, buying a massive tree that barely fit in their living room and decorating it with ornaments they picked out together. Gabriel proved to be surprisingly enthusiastic about holiday decorating, stringing lights with meticulous precision, and insisting they needed a wreath for their door that cost more than most people's monthly grocery budget. Work kept them both busy. Gabriel was finalizing the purchase of a defunct shopping mall in New Jersey that he planned to transform into a community center with affordable housing, retail space, and a rooftop garden. Katherine's offshore wind project was moving into its critical assessment phase, requiring long hours and detailed analysis. On a Friday evening 2 weeks before Christmas, Katherine was working late at her office when she felt a wave of nausea hit her out of nowhere. She barely made it to the bathroom before losing her lunch. Afterward, sitting on the cold tile floor, she tried to remember what she had eaten that might have caused food poisoning. The nausea passed quickly, and she finished her workday without further incident. But the next morning she woke up feeling queasy again, and the morning after that. By Monday, a tiny seed of hope had planted itself in her chest, one she was almost afraid to acknowledge. She was not tracking her cycle anymore, had not been for over a month. She had no idea when her last period had been, had deliberately stopped paying attention. But as she counted backward in her head, she realized it had been a while. Maybe 5 weeks, 6. Katherine stood in the bathroom of her office building, staring at the pregnancy test she had bought from the pharmacy downstairs during her lunch break. She had promised herself she would not do this anymore, would not subject herself to the disappointment of negative tests. But the nausea, the exhaustion she had been attributing to long work hours, the tenderness in her breasts she had been ignoring, all of it added up to something she could not dismiss. She took the test. 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. Katherine washed her hands twice, responded to emails on her phone, reorganized the items in her purse, anything to avoid looking at the test sitting on the counter. Finally, unable to wait any longer, she looked. 2 lines. clear and unmistakable, 2 pink lines. Katherine's knees went weak and she gripped the sink for support. Pregnant. She was pregnant. After all the months of trying, of disappointment and tears and fear that it would never happen, it had happened when she stopped trying so hard. She wanted to call Gabriel immediately to share this moment with him, but something held her back. She had told him about every negative test, every disappointment. This time, she wanted to be absolutely sure before she said anything. The test could be a false positive. She could miscarry early. She needed confirmation. Katherine called her doctor from the bathroom stall and made an appointment for the next day, claiming a potential exposure to hazardous materials at a worksite that required immediate blood work. It was not entirely a lie. She had visited a remediation site last week. That evening, she sat across from Gabriel at dinner, watching him talk about his day, wanting desperately to tell him but holding back. He noticed her distraction. "Everything okay?" he asked, reaching across the table to touch her hand. "Just tired. Long day at work." It was not a lie exactly, but it felt like one. "You've been working too hard on this wind farm project. Maybe you should take a few days off, get some rest. Maybe after the holidays." She squeezed his hand, overwhelmed with love for this man who had stood by her through every emotional storm of the past months. "I love you, you know that," Gabriel smiled, the genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "I know. I love you too. What brought that on?" "Just feeling grateful for you, for us." The next day, Katherine left work early for her doctor's appointment, sitting in the waiting room and trying to control her racing heart. When they called her back for blood work, her hands shook so badly the nurse had trouble finding her vein. "Nervous about needles?" the nurse asked kindly. "Something like that," Katherine managed. They told her the results would be ready in a few hours, that they would call her by end of day. Katherine went back to work and accomplished absolutely nothing, staring at her computer screen without seeing anything, jumping every time her phone buzzed. At 4:30, her phone rang with the doctor's office number. "Katherine, this is Nurse Peterson from Dr. Walsh's office. Your blood work came back, and I'm calling to confirm that you are indeed pregnant. Your HCG levels are good, consistent with being about 5 to 6 weeks along. Dr. Walsh would like to schedule you for an ultrasound in 2 weeks to confirm the pregnancy and check on development." Katherine closed her office door and sat down heavily in her chair, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. Yes, I'll schedule the ultrasound." After hanging up, she sat in her office crying and laughing simultaneously, overwhelmed with relief and joy and fear. She was pregnant. They were going to have a baby. Now she just had to figure out how to tell Gabriel. She spent the evening planning and discarding various ideas. Everything seemed either too elaborate or too simple for such a momentous announcement. Finally, she decided on simple and direct. This was too important for games or cute reveals. She just wanted to tell her husband they were having a baby. Gabriel arrived home at 7, loosening his tie as he walked through the door. Katherine was sitting on the couch, hands folded in her lap, nerves making her feel slightly sick again. "Hey, you're home early," he said, bending to kiss her. He pulled back, studying her face. "You look upset. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Sit down, I need to tell you something." Gabriel's face shifted into concern and he sat beside her immediately, taking her hands in his. "You're scaring me." "What happened?" Katherine looked at their joined hands, at this man who had been her rock through everything, and felt tears spill down her cheeks. "I'm pregnant." Gabriel went completely still, his eyes searching her face. "What? I'm pregnant?" "I took a test yesterday, and I had blood work done today to confirm it. I'm about 5 or 6 weeks along." The words tumbled out in a rush now that she had started. I didn't want to tell you until I was sure because I know we've had so many disappointments, and I couldn't bear to get your hopes up if it was a false positive. But it's real. We're having a baby." Gabriel's face went through a rapid series of emotions, shock giving way to wonder giving way to pure joy. He pulled her into his arms so tightly she could barely breathe, his whole body shaking. When he pulled back, there were tears streaming down his face. "We're having a baby." His voice cracked on the words. "We're having a baby," Katherine confirmed, crying and laughing at the same time. Gabriel kissed her, tender and reverent, his hands cradling her face like she was the most precious thing in the world. "I can't believe it. After everything, after we stopped trying so hard, it just happened. I know. It's like as soon as I let go of all that pressure and stress, my body finally relaxed enough to let it happen." Katherine placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "There's a baby in there, our baby." "Our baby," Gabriel repeated, staring at her stomach with awe. "Do you feel different? Are you okay? Do you need anything?" Katherine laughed at his sudden flurry of concern. "I'm fine. I've been nauseous in the mornings and I'm tired a lot, but the doctor said that's all normal. I have an ultrasound scheduled in 2 weeks. I'm coming to that. Put it in my calendar right now. I don't care what meetings I have to move." Gabriel pulled out his phone, already opening his schedule. "Gabriel, slow down. We have time. I don't want to miss anything. Not one appointment, not one moment of this." He set his phone aside and pulled her back into his arms. "Thank you. Thank you for not giving up, for going through all those months of disappointment, for giving us this gift. Thank you for standing by me through all of it. I couldn't have done this without you." Katherine settled into his embrace, feeling safe and loved and incredibly blessed. They spent the rest of the evening talking about the future, about nursery plans and names, and whether they wanted to find out the gender. Gabriel insisted they needed to move to a bigger place immediately, which Katherine dismissed since their penthouse had 3 bedrooms and plenty of space. He talked about cutting back his work hours, being more present, not wanting to miss his child's life because he was too busy building buildings. "You don't have to change everything right now," Katherine said, amused by his intensity. "We have 7.5 months to figure this out. I want to do this right. I want to be the kind of father who's actually there, not just some distant figure who shows up for holidays and major milestones." Katherine thought about her own father, a lawyer who had worked long hours but always made time for dinner with the family, for school plays and soccer games. "You're already going to be an amazing father. I see how you care about people, how you've built your entire business around creating communities and improving lives. You're going to bring that same passion to parenting." Gabriel kissed her forehead. "I hope so. I want to give our kid everything, not just material things but time and attention and love. Then that's what we'll do, together." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of secret joy and careful caution. They decided not to tell anyone until after the first ultrasound, wanting to make sure everything was developing properly before sharing their news. Katherine found herself constantly touching her stomach, still flat, but containing the tiny life they had created. The nausea continued most mornings, but she welcomed it as confirmation that this was real. Gabriel became almost comically protective, insisting she avoid anything remotely stressful or physically demanding. When she mentioned she had a site visit scheduled at a construction location, he nearly had a panic attack until she assured him it was a finished site with no hazardous materials or safety concerns. On the day of the ultrasound, they both took the afternoon off work. Katherine was nervous, terrified that something would be wrong, that they would get to the appointment and discover this had all been a cruel trick. Gabriel held her hand in the waiting room, thumb rubbing circles on her palm. "Whatever happens, we're in this together," he murmured. The ultrasound technician was a cheerful woman named Rosa who chatted easily as she prepped Katherine for the scan. The gel was cold on her stomach, and Katherine gripped Gabriel's hand tighter as Rosa moved the wand around. "Let's see what we have here," Rosa said, eyes on the screen. After a moment, she smiled. "There we go. That's your baby." Katherine and Gabriel stared at the screen where a tiny bean-shaped blob flickered with rapid movement. It looked nothing like a baby, just a grainy image that could have been anything, but it was the most beautiful thing Katherine had ever seen. "That flickering is the heartbeat," Rosa explained. "Nice and strong. Let me get some measurements here." She clicked buttons on her keyboard, taking images and measurements. "Everything looks great. Based on these measurements, I'd say you're about 7 weeks along, which makes your due date around July 15th. "July," Gabriel said, his voice thick with emotion. "A summer baby." "The heartbeat is strong?" Katherine asked, needing confirmation. "Very strong. 162 beats per minute, which is perfect for this stage." Rosa smiled at them. "Congratulations, you two. You have a healthy pregnancy so far." They left the appointment with a printout of the ultrasound image, both of them crying in the elevator. In the car, Gabriel kept glancing at the picture, then at Katherine, then back at the picture, like he could not quite believe this was happening. "We're really having a baby," he said for probably the 10th time. "We really are." Katherine looked at the ultrasound image, at the tiny bean that was their child. "Should we start telling people?" "I want to tell everyone. I want to rent a billboard in Times Square." Gabriel laughed, giddy with joy. "But seriously, yes. Let's tell our families, our close friends. I want to share this." They called their parents that evening, both sets reacting with tears and excitement. Katherine's mother immediately started planning a baby shower, while Gabriel's father offered to fund a nursery renovation. Gabriel's mother cried so hard she could barely speak, overcome with emotion at the prospect of her first grandchild. Over the next few weeks, as they shared their news with friends and colleagues, Katherine felt herself relax into the pregnancy. The first trimester was exhausting, the nausea and fatigue hitting her hard, but Gabriel was there through all of it. He brought her crackers in bed before she even opened her eyes, scheduled his meetings around her energy levels so he could be home when she needed him, and never once complained about the toll pregnancy was taking on their lives. Marcus teased Gabriel mercilessly about his sudden obsession with pregnancy books and parenting podcasts, but Katherine could tell he was happy for them. The entire office at Daniel's development seemed to be celebrating, with congratulations coming from people Katherine had only met once or twice. In February, as Katherine entered her second trimester, the nausea finally subsided and her energy returned. She and Gabriel spent a weekend at the cabin, walking through the snow-covered woods and talking about how they would bring their baby here, teach them to skip stones and appreciate the quiet of nature. "I was thinking," Gabriel said as they sat by the fire, Katherine's feet in his lap while he rubbed them. "Maybe we should get married again." Katherine laughed. "We're already married." "I know, but we got married before all of this, before we went through the struggle of trying to have a baby, before we really understood what it meant to be partners through hard times. I want to renew our vows, make a new commitment now that we know what we're capable of weathering together." Katherine considered this, touched by his sentimentness. "You want to have a vow renewal ceremony before the baby is born, or after? Whenever you want. I just feel like we're different people than we were when we got married the first time, stronger together. I want to celebrate that." "I love that idea." Katherine leaned over to kiss him, made awkward by her growing belly. "Maybe we could do something small, just family and close friends. Here at the cabin, maybe in the spring." "Perfect." Gabriel placed his hand on her stomach, which had started to show a definite bump. "Hear that, little one? Your parents are crazy about each other." As if in response, Katherine felt a flutter in her stomach, faint but unmistakable. Her eyes went wide. "Gabriel, I think I just felt the baby move." His face lit up with wonder. "Really? Can I feel it?" They sat there for the next hour, his hand pressed to her stomach, waiting for another flutter. It came eventually, soft and quick, and Gabriel's eyes filled with tears. "That's our baby," he whispered. "That's our child saying hello." Katherine had never loved him more than in that moment, seeing the pure joy and love on his face. All the months of struggle, of disappointment and fear and frustration, had led them here. The journey had not been easy, but it had strengthened their bond in ways she could not have imagined. They had learned to support each other through failure, to communicate about fear and inadequacy, to hold each other up when everything felt impossible. The vow renewal ceremony took place in May, on a perfect spring day with the lake sparkling in the sunshine and wildflowers blooming around the cabin. Katherine wore a simple white dress that accommodated her now prominent belly, her hair loose around her shoulders. Gabriel wore a suit but no tie, looking relaxed and happier than she had ever seen him. Their families gathered on the dock, maybe 30 people total, their closest friends and relatives. Gabriel's father served as officiant, having gotten ordained online specifically for this occasion. Katherine's sister was her matron of honor, while Marcus stood up as Gabriel's best man. When it came time for vows, Gabriel went first, taking Katherine's hands in his and looking into her eyes with absolute love. "Katherine, when I married you the first time, I thought I knew what I was signing up for. A partnership, a life together, building something meaningful. And we have built something beautiful, but not in the way I expected. The past year has tested us in ways I never anticipated. Watching you struggle with the pain of negative pregnancy tests, feeling helpless to fix it, wondering if we would ever have the family we dreamed of, all of it pushed us to places I did not know we could go. But through all of it, you never stopped being the strongest, most incredible woman I have ever known. You taught me that love is not just about the good times, the easy moments. It is about showing up when things are hard, being honest about fear and pain, supporting each other through disappointment. I stand here today more in love with you than I was 18 months ago, and I will stand beside you for every challenge and joy our future holds. I promise to be your partner in all things, to support your dreams and ambitions, to be the father our child deserves, and to never stop choosing you every single day." Katherine was crying before he finished, mascara probably running down her face, but she did not care. When her turn came, she steadied her voice and spoke from her heart. "Gabriel, you have been my rock through the hardest year of my life. When I felt broken and inadequate, you reminded me of my worth. When I wanted to give up, you held me together. When I disappeared under the weight of trying to conceive, you brought me back to myself. You showed me what unconditional love really means, that I am not valued for what I can give you but for who I am. You made me feel safe enough to be vulnerable, to admit my fears and failures, and you never once made me feel less than whole. Standing here now, carrying our child, I am overwhelmed with gratitude for your strength and patience and unwavering support. I promise to be your partner through whatever comes next, to support your dreams and ambitions, to be the mother our child deserves, and to love you with everything I am for the rest of our lives." They exchanged new rings, simple platinum bands engraved with the date, and kissed while their families cheered. The baby kicked hard during the kiss, making them both laugh and break apart to place their hands on Katherine's stomach. "I think someone approves," Gabriel said, grinning. They spent the rest of the day celebrating with the people they loved most, eating good food and sharing stories and soaking in the joy of the moment. Catherine's mother cornered her at one point, eyes bright with tears. "I'm so happy for you, sweetheart. I know this year was hard, all the trying and disappointment, but look at you now. You're glowing." "I feel happy, Mom, really, genuinely happy, not just because of the baby, but because Gabriel and I came through everything stronger." Katherine watched her husband across the deck, deep in conversation with his father. "The struggle made us better. That's what real love does. It does not break under pressure, it strengthens." Her mother hugged her carefully, mindful of her belly. "You chose well with that one." As the sun set over the lake, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Gabriel found Katherine sitting on the dock with her feet dangling over the water. He sat beside her, arm around her shoulders, and they watched the colors fade together. "Thank you for today," Katherine said softly. "It was perfect. Thank you for saying yes to renewing our vows, for giving me the chance to promise myself to you again." Gabriel kissed her temple. "I meant every word, you know. You are the strongest person I know. I did not feel very strong this past year. I felt like I was falling apart most of the time. Strength is not about never breaking down. It is about getting back up, about being honest about the struggle, about asking for help when you need it. You did all of that." He placed his hand on her belly, feeling the baby move beneath his palm. "And look what we created together. Not just this little person, but a marriage that can weather anything." Katherine leaned into him, feeling grateful and blessed and deeply in love. "Do you think we'll be good at this, parenting?" "I think we'll make mistakes and learn as we go, just like everyone else. But yes, I think we'll be good at it. We're good at being a team." The final 2 months of pregnancy passed quickly. Katherine took maternity leave from her consulting firm in early July, using the time to finish preparing the nursery and rest as much as possible. Gabriel reduced his work hours drastically, working mostly from home so he could be close by as her due date approached. On July 12th, 3 days before her due date, Katherine woke up at 3 in the morning with a strange cramping sensation. She lay in bed for a while, timing the contractions with an app on her phone, watching them come every 15 minutes, then every 10. By 6 in the morning, they were 7 minutes apart, and she shook Gabriel awake. "I think it's time," she said, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. Gabriel was instantly alert, sitting up and reaching for his phone. "How far apart are the contractions?" 7 minutes. "They've been consistent for the past hour." Okay, we need to get to the hospital." He jumped out of bed, then paused, running his hands through his hair. "What do I need to do? The bag is packed, it's by the door. Do you need help getting dressed?" Katherine laughed despite the fear coursing through her. "I can get dressed. You call the doctor. Let them know we're coming in." The next 18 hours were a blur of pain and exhaustion and Gabriel's steady presence. He held her hand through every contraction, wiped her forehead with cool cloths, advocated for her when she was too tired to speak for herself. The epidural helped with the pain but also slowed her labor, leading to anxious hours of waiting and monitoring. Finally, at 11:42 that night, Katherine pushed their daughter into the world. The sound of her first cry was the most beautiful thing Katherine had ever heard. And when the nurse placed the baby on her chest, tiny and perfect and squalling with fury at being born, Katherine felt her heart expand in ways she had not known were possible. Gabriel was crying openly, his hand trembling as he touched their daughter's head, covered in dark hair just like his. "She's perfect. Katherine, she's absolutely perfect." "She's ours," Katherine whispered, overwhelmed with love and exhaustion and pure joy. They named her Gemma Rose Daniels, and she was indeed perfect. Tiny fingers and toes, Gabriel's dark eyes, Katherine's nose, a temperament that seemed to swing between peaceful contentment and fierce displeasure with no middle ground. The first few weeks were harder than Katherine had imagined, sleepless nights blending into exhausted days, learning to breastfeed and change diapers and decipher different cries. But Gabriel was there for all of it, taking night shifts when he could, researching solutions to problems, supporting Katherine through the physical and emotional recovery from childbirth. One night, about 3 weeks after Gemma's birth, Katherine found herself crying in the nursery at 2 in the morning, completely overwhelmed and exhausted. Gemma had been crying for 2 hours straight, refusing to nurse or sleep, and Katherine felt like a complete failure as a mother. Gabriel found her there, took Gemma gently from her arms and wrapped his free arm around Katherine's shoulders. "Go get some sleep. I've got her. She needs to eat. She won't take a bottle. Then I will walk with her until she is calm enough to try again. You need rest, Katherine. You are going to make yourself sick. I'm supposed to be able to do this. I'm her mother. You are her mother and you are doing an incredible job. But you are also human and you need sleep. Please let me help." Katherine was too exhausted to argue. She stumbled to their bedroom and collapsed into bed, asleep within minutes. When she woke 6 hours later, morning light streaming through the windows, she panicked before hearing voices from the nursery. She found Gabriel in the rocking chair, Gemma sleeping peacefully on his chest, both of them looking content. "You got her to sleep," Katherine said softly, not wanting to wake the baby. "Eventually. She took a bottle around 4 and we have been like this ever since." Gabriel looked up at Katherine, dark circles under his eyes but smiling. "How do you feel?" "Guilty for sleeping while you stayed up all night, but also more human than I have felt in days." Katherine sat on the ottoman beside the rocking chair, studying her husband and daughter. "Thank you." "Nothing to thank me for. This is what we do, remember? We are a team." Those early months of parenting were challenging, but they navigated them together, learning as they went, supporting each other through the hardest moments. Gabriel proved to be a natural father, patient and gentle with Gemma, completely unafraid of diapers or spit up or middle of the night screaming sessions. By the time Gemma was 6 months old, they had found their rhythm as a family. Katherine returned to work part-time, grateful for the flexibility her firm offered. Gabriel had restructured his role at Daniel's development, promoting Marcus to president so he could focus more on strategic planning and less on daily operations, giving him more time at home. On a Saturday afternoon in February, they took Gemma to the cabin for the first time. She was fascinated by the snow, eyes wide as Gabriel carried her around the property, pointing out trees and birds and the frozen lake. Katherine watched them from the window, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. That evening, with Gemma asleep in the portable crib they had brought, Katherine and Gabriel sat by the fire much as they had a year earlier, feet tangled together on the couch. "Do you remember last winter when we were here and I first felt her move?" Katherine asked softly. "I think about it all the time, how scared and hopeful we both were, not knowing what the future held." Gabriel pulled her closer. "Look at us now. I never could have imagined this, back when I was taking all those negative pregnancy tests and feeling like such a failure. I could not have imagined how much stronger we would become through the struggle. The struggle was worth it. Every moment of pain and fear and disappointment was worth it to get here, to have Gemma, and to have the relationship we have now." Gabriel kissed the top of her head. "I would not change anything about our journey." Katherine thought about that, about all the tears and frustration and moments when she wanted to give up. "I would not either. It taught us how to really be partners, how to support each other through the hardest times. We needed that before we became parents. We did." Gabriel looked over at Gemma sleeping peacefully in her crib. Do you think you will want more? Eventually, Katherine laughed softly. Ask me again when she's sleeping through the night consistently. But yes, I think so. I would love for Gemma to have a sibling. No rush, though. Let us enjoy this little one first. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire and listening to their daughter's soft breathing, both of them content in ways they had not been a year ago. The journey to parenthood had not been easy, but it had strengthened their love and their commitment to each other in ways Katherine could never have anticipated. The struggle had made them better, individually and together. It had taught them patience and vulnerability, communication and unconditional support. It had shown them that love was not just about the happy moments, but about showing up for each other when things were hard, about being honest about fear and disappointment, about believing in each other even when self-belief faltered. Looking at Gabriel, at their daughter, at the life they had built together, Katherine felt grateful for every difficult moment that had brought them here. The negative pregnancy tests, the tears, the fear that it would never happen, all of it had been necessary to create the foundation they now stood on. They had tried for a baby and found that the trying itself, the struggle and the support and the unwavering commitment to each other, had strengthened their love in ways that made everything else possible. The baby was a blessing, but the real gift was the relationship they had forged through adversity, the partnership that could weather any storm. As Gemma stirred in her sleep, making soft baby sounds, Gabriel went to her immediately, lifting her gently and bringing her back to the couch. The three of them sat together by the fire, a family created through perseverance and love, ready for whatever challenges and joys the future would bring. Katherine looked at her husband holding their daughter, both of them gazing at each other with pure love, and felt a deep sense of peace. This was what she had been fighting for during all those difficult months. Not just a baby, but this exact moment, this perfect family, this love that had been tested and strengthened and proven unbreakable. The journey had been hard, but they had made it through together. And that, Katherine knew, was what would carry them through everything else life had in store. Not just the desire for a baby, but the love that had been forged and strengthened through the struggle to create one. That love would be their foundation through late-night feedings and terrible twos, through first days of school and teenage rebellion, through all the challenges of raising a child together. They had tried for a baby and discovered something even more precious. The depth of their love for each other, tested and strengthened by adversity, unshakable in its foundation. And that love would sustain them through everything that came next, a promise renewed and deepened with every challenge they faced together. In the end, the struggle had not weakened them but made them stronger, individually and as a couple. It had given them the tools they needed to be not just partners but true teammates, facing life together with honesty and support and unwavering commitment. The baby they had fought so hard for was beautiful and perfect, but the real miracle was the love that had carried them through the journey to her, a love that would carry them through whatever came next. As Katherine sat there with her family, watching the fire dance and listening to the winter wind outside, she felt nothing but gratitude. Gratitude for Gabriel's steadfast support, for Gemma's perfect existence, for the struggle that had taught them how to truly love each other through the hardest times. They had started this journey wanting a baby and found so much more. A partnership that could weather any storm, a love that strengthened under pressure, and a family built on a foundation of mutual support and unwavering commitment. This was their happily ever after, hard-won and all the more precious for the struggle it took to achieve. And Katherine knew, deep in her heart, that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, their love continuing to strengthen and deepen with each passing year. The trying had been difficult, but the loving, the supporting, the growing together through adversity, that had been the real gift all along.